giving him the victory as the first one to escape the cage. And the main event, which was really not received well by the fans, those who were in attendance, as the Tacoma Dome had to be tarped off a lot, they were punished by having Seth Rollins taking on Baron Corbin. Baron Corbin revealed who his referee was going to be, and it turned out to be Lacey Evans. Some people didn't think that made sense, but to me it made perfect sense, since Lacey is embroiled in a feud with Seth's real-life girlfriend, Becky Lynch, and with Seth Rollins taking out people with chairs. Was he really going to do that to Lacey Evans, a female? Not likely. So it made for the perfect foil for this match. Of course, Lacey didn't do that well in reffing. Reports have it that there was a referee at ringside yelling at her and telling her what she needed to do. She did very lackadaisical counts, but that is expected as a heel referee. And in the end, after making a no countout match, making a no disqualification match, that allowed Becky to get involved, especially after she and Lacey, that is, slapped and kicked Seth. Becky came out to defend and take out Lacey, and that allowed John Cone to then get into the ring, and Seth Rollins defeated Baron Corbin to retain the Universal Championship. This is all now leading to WWE presenting Extreme Rules on Sunday, July 14th, coming to you from Philadelphia at the Wells Fargo Center. And because of all that happened and how Monday Night Raw opened, we'll now see Seth Rollins and Becky Lynch putting both their titles on the line against Baron Corbin and Lacey Evans in a mixed tag team match. If either Corbin or Lacey win, Rollins and Lynch will end up losing their titles. Plus, we saw the return of Undertaker on Monday, and he'll team with Roman Reigns, taking on Drew McIntyre and Shane McMahon. Kofi Kingston will take on Samoa Joe after Joe had attacked Kofi on Monday. Bayley will get another match against Alexa Bliss, as she lost on Tuesday to Nikki Cross, which gave Bliss back a title shot. Weird booking on that one. And Drew Gulak will defend the Cruiserweight Championship against Tony Nese. So that's 5 matches already announced for Extreme Rules, and there's been no real Extreme Rule put into play. So we'll see how that unfolds over the next 2 weeks as we head into Extreme Rules. Tyson Dukes is currently one half of the Smash Wrestling Tag Team Champions and one of the pillars of wrestling in Ontario. He's had a very impressive career over the past 2 decades, and it's only natural that aspiring wrestlers would want to learn from a veteran of his caliber. Since October of 2017, Tyson opened up the Tyson Dukes Wrestling Factory here in London, Ontario. Students learn all aspects of wrestling. The first graduates like Jim Strider, Violet Lee, and Jordan James are making their names for themselves on the indie scene. Whether you're a student or a supporter, you can now be a part of the club and purchase your own beautiful zip-up hoodie. They're just $40 up to extra large and $45 for larger sizes. Contact Tyson Dukes Wrestling Factory directly on Facebook to order yours today. Let's check out the news from last week. Seth Rollins was on the SI Media podcast interviewed by Jimmy Turina, and he made comments about Dean Ambrose. And he said, Ambrose can do what he wants. He's a big boy. He's got his big boy pants on. He can go out there and say whatever he wants. But the bottom line is, not everybody's equipped to handle the rigors of WWE and the schedule and how it affects you mentally and emotionally. And Ambrose gave everything he had to the company for the entire time he was here. He put his heart and soul into the travel, into the schedule, into the injuries, into the work in the ring and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, he took his ball and he went home. He went elsewhere at least. And I think it's a little presumptuous of him to get on a podcast and talk down about the company that gave him such an opportunity. And like I said, I love the guy. I love him. I'll always love him. But at the end of the day, we just share different perspectives about what we want out of life and about where we're at in our own lives. I hope he does well. I've kept enough tabs on him to know he's doing super well for himself right now, and I'm happy about that. But I just don't think there's any reason to hop on a soapbox and complain after the fact. Rollins also noted that he hasn't actually spoken with Moxley since Moxley made those comments public and departing WWE, but he obviously does keep in touch through Renee Young. Since then as well, Seth Rollins has posted on Twitter bragging about WWE being the best company in the world to work for and everything, and it's great that he wants to be a locker room leader and defend where he works. He might need a little bit of a reality check of how fans are feeling, but if he's feeling that way, hey, all the power to him. He needs to believe what he does. However, he's also gotten into a war of words with Will Ospreay, and that's gone back and forth between them on Twitter. Ospreay said, "I just think it's a little bit of friendly banter. I love Rollins. Rollins is the absolute Don. He's the man. You know what I mean? He's one of the best wrestlers ever, period. But you asked the question. You asked me, find someone alive. As far as I'm concerned, I'm breathing. There's oxygen in my lungs. I think the last time I heard about an amazing Seth Rollins match was his one against AJ. And if you can't get a good match out of AJ Styles, then I think you should leave the planet. I'm still here, I'm still breathing, and I think my run this year, not just in New Japan, in the Indies and everywhere I've been, is I don't half-ass anything. I don't do a terrible TV match. I just go hard every single night. If you give me an opportunity to show what I can do, I do it." And that was his response to the fact that Seth put himself over as the best wrestler alive and breathing. And that's where Ospreay ended up getting somewhat offended because he's alive and breathing too and thinks he's better. WWE also has been doing a bit of a change up. There's been an edict by Vince that there will no longer be matches happening during commercial breaks, which for me, I think is really odd and kind of dumb. If a commercial break is needed, take the commercial break or put the match just within that segment. It happened before in the good old days with Superstars where you saw just in and done. Of course, there was a lot of enhancement performers in there, but at the same time, what does it matter if a commercial's going? You are presenting a live event to people in an arena. Now we're getting stuck with a bunch of 203 Falls matches, which I love 203 Falls matches until now. They're just being overdone 4 in the last 2 episodes, it seems. And yeah, I can only imagine what it's going to be like in the arena during stuff like that. Apparently, they take a timeout while wrestlers just sit there and wait for the commercials to be over. Different promos are cut during the commercials or videos are shown up on the wall. And you have 2 people or 4, depending on who's in the match, just standing there looking dumb at each other until the commercial comes back and they have to ring the bell. Does not make sense at all to me, and it looks really sloppy. WWE announced that this week they were going to be showing the 10th anniversary show of Evolve as it happens on the WWE Network. This also coincides with AEW's Fight for the Fallen event that's going to happen from Jacksonville. This really pissed off Kenny Omega, and he ended up tweeting and deleting a quote about taking blood money and the fact that WWE wants to put up a show against a charity event that is supposed to help people who are victims of gun violence, and thinks it's very classless and low of WWE to do so. Just means more fire going on between the two companies, which could be great for the future of wrestling. And we'll have to wait and see. That Evolve show, though, will have a few WWE performers on it, as we'll see Matt Riddle take on Drew Gulak, who is the current Cruiserweight champion, and the NXT champion Adam Cole will go against Akira Tozawa. And probably the biggest news, though, this week involves WWE announcing that Eric Bischoff and Paul Heyman will be executive directors of SmackDown and Raw, respectively. They are both said to be reporting directly to the company chairman, Vince McMahon. While this might be a good option, hopefully they're not going to get micromanaged, and they'll have a little more leeway, and they'll be able to put their ideas and take the fans' opinions, as WWE says they want to, into consideration. I guess the big question, though, is how will this affect Bischoff's 83 Weeks podcast? And will Bischoff and Heyman be TV characters as opposed to just behind the scenes working on doing what's best for creative? There's also been a story that Bischoff was added and will be working with Fox TV network in anticipation for the show's launch in October, which then there's supposed to be new camera is being used, possibly new angles, just a whole different layout to make it feel more sports oriented. There's a hope that since it's in the Staples Center for the first week on Fox, that celebrities will be there, so there'll be more big fight feel. And it's also happening the same week that AEW is presenting what is now going to be presumed to be called Wednesday Night Dynamite on TNT.
This is Sting Bassey. You're listening to the Scumbags Wrestling Podcast.
Thank you for joining me for this week's episode of the Scumbags Wrestling Podcast. Be sure to share this with your friends, regardless of where they listen to, as we're available on 15 different platforms, including Stitcher, Spotify, iTunes, and iHeartRadio, plus Podcoin. Join us every day on our Facebook page as we discuss wrestling and celebrate wrestlers' birthdays. Plus, you can always email me at scumbagswrestling@gmail.com. Share your thoughts and get involved. We always love to be interactive. So until next time, have a great one.
Surrounded by a bunch of loudmouth scumbags that just want attention. Silence your cell phones, hold your applause, and shut your mouths.